Hello and welcome along to the Rugby Pod. Goody is with me as usual, but no Jim this week. So we've looked far and wide for a replacement. We've actually conducted a global search and nobody wanted to come on. So we have a friend of the show, Freddie Burns, joining us all the way from Japan. How are you, mate?
Konbanwa, lads. All right, that's good evening in Japanese.
Yeah.
So,
mate, you could say anything and we believe it, Freddie. You could say absolutely anything and we'd believe it, mate.
Mate, honestly, 99% of the time, that's what I do. I just make noises here at people and just smile and nod. That's it.
Oh, nice. So how have you settled in? Obviously, you've been over there a few weeks now. I've followed everything very closely on Instagram. We know you quarantined for 2 weeks. I mean, that must have been pretty brutal. You had internet connection, so no doubt certain websites begin with P and ended in B got an absolute hammering. How was life over there, pal?
Mate, it's good, mate. It's good. It's vastly different to England and stuff like that. So I've been here 4 weeks now. So I did my 2 weeks quarantine and then I've done 2 weeks of training. I actually had my first little run out on Saturday. That we had a little pre-season game against the other Toyota team. And they were like, I've literally trained for 10 days and the head coach is like, do you want to play? And I'm like, well, I'm pretty undercooked. I've had 7 months off. And they put me on for like 15 minutes. I was terrible, mate, but it only gets better, doesn't it? So it's right, mate. Yeah. So it's good. It's good. Like I say, it's different. And I'm getting to the stage this week where the holiday period is over. You suddenly realise that you're here to work, and certain frustrations align a little bit with the language barrier, especially being a fly half. But it's the challenge, and it was what I expected. So just working through it and trying to nail down as much of the language as I can, so I can have a good season.
Well, how brutal was the lockdown? Because 14 days, was it 14 days in an apartment in Japan when you just landed in the country? Where are you? We still didn't even know where you are. You said you were somewhere between Tokyo and somewhere else last time we spoke.
Yeah, so I'm in a city called Korea, not Korea.
North Korea, happy days.
Yeah, yeah. And it's basically it's near Nagoya, which is Japan's fourth largest city. So, quarantine was what it was. It was a bit tough, but I was allowed out to go and get food every day. So I went to the supermarket and I sort of took the long way around on my push bike. So it was tough, mate, but it was part of it. And after having 7 months off, whatever it was, stuck in the UK, I was just happy to be out here and on the countdown to getting back into a bit of ruggers, mate.
What's the coronavirus situation over there? You guys like just out as normal now that you're out of quarantine?
Yeah, well, it's hard, isn't it? Because they all wore masks over here anyway, like before any like coronavirus and that. So I just wear a mask at the supermarket or when you're in a shop, but everything seems to be pretty normal. There was a chat the other day from the company about a third wave coming, but the season doesn't start till January, so they're making no decisions on that yet. And yeah, we're just cracking on as normal. When we're at training, we wear a mask, and then when we're outside, we just crack on. So I don't really know too much about it. Just trying to make the most of having a bit of freedom, which you guys haven't got in England.
No, we certainly haven't. But what I'm interested in is you're talking about you played a game already. You've been involved with a bit of rugby. You just make a few noises on the field. How hard is the language, mate? Because all I'm thinking, every time I walk into Nobu, they shout something at me when I'm down in London. And I'm thinking, is that what they just do in Japan? They shout at you in words that you don't understand. Are you shouting back at them? Yeah, Freddie Burns here, son. Freddie's son. Mate,
so for the first sort of 2 weeks of training, I'm like, I thought I was coming, I'm one of the cat players. It's very different how it works here, but I'm one of the cat players, like, boys, social media following, all that sort of stuff. And I'm on the ball, and all these boys outside me are just going, Harry, like this. And I'm going, hey, I'm like, my name's Freddie, mate. And they're like, and then I catch the ball again, and they're like, Harry, like this. I'm like, mate, what the fuck's going on? And I spoke to Tusi Peter, who's going, oh no, mate, they're asking for the ball early.
Oh, early.
So, like, literally, for the first 2 training sessions, I was like, mate, like, I thought I was coming here as, like, big dog. And they're calling me Harry. I thought it would be like Prince Harry or what. I was just sort of smiling and nodding. And, yeah, apparently they just wanted the ball early. So I've just started shipping it on a bit earlier now.
And has the chip and chase come out yet? Have you learnt that in Japanese, chip and chase? Chip and chasey, quickie.
Yeah, no, mate. I don't know what they call it here, but yeah, no chips and chases just yet, mate. I'm just trying to find my feet, mate. Like once I'm, you got to walk before you can run. Do you know what I mean? But no, it is, mate. It's hard. You know, you can't just have those. You know what it's like as a 10 goodie. You just want to turn around to someone and be like, mate, like, or oh, I'll bounce out or come at the line with me. And you just can't say anything. You can't have those real quick conversations. You need to wait for the translator to come on, and then everything's like a little bit more long-winded. So it's definitely teaching me patience, mate. But like I say, it's part of the challenge. It's the challenge that I knew was gonna be here when I signed. And yes, it's proven tough, but it's all good fun.
Mate, if you're waiting for the translator to come on in phase play, you're absolutely fucked because you're getting buried by a massive Tongan number 8 or something.
Well, mate, that was it the weekend, mate. Like I was over. The 9 got caught, and I went to sort of like secure him. And we played Toyota for Blitz, which finished in the top 4 last year. It's like Willie LaRue's team, and Kieran Reid's going to be there, and I think Hooper's signed there as well. But
mate, shit, they sound shit. They sound absolutely shit.
Yeah, exactly. But I've been on for 5 minutes, right? And I just sort of seal, you know, I'm not hitting anyone. I'm just sealing over. And one of the Japanese boys is trying to say something to me, and I don't know what it is. And he like slaps me on the back, sort of. And I kind of look back at him, and of course, as soon as I look back, their massive Tongan number 8 seen that I'd done that and just counter-ruck me, mate. Next thing you know, I'm back on my ass. They pick up the ball. They kick it 80 metres downfield. It goes out. I'm thinking, oh, for fuck's sake. It's not going to be, like, it's no cakewalk, mate. Like, it's you know, and it's a bonkers place, mate, because there's only, I think in my team, there's like 15 professionals. The rest train, and then they go and work for the company, and then they come back and we train a bit later in the day. So it's like, it's a weird dynamic, mate, but the standard and the sort of attitude is very professional from the boys. So we're a team that know that we're not the best, and they're trying to change that and push on. So hopefully, as my language gets a bit better, I can start having more of an influence, but I think it just calls for a bit of patience at the minute.
And what was the scoreline on Saturday? Did you take 50, or was it a bit closer than that?
No, it was close, but I think we only lost by 2 tries in the end. None of them scored. We scored none when I come on. Because they were calling me Harry again. No chance.
Fucking Harry, Harry. My name's Freddie.
But no, mate. Yeah, like the boy, mate. I tell you what, the boys have gone well, and the season doesn't start till January, so it's such a long time. But they're trying to, we're trying to develop into a top league, you know, team that stays in the top league. They've kind of yo-yoed over the last few years. And like, just the way it works this year is there's 3 pools of 8. The top league team, the 16 top league teams are in 2 pools, and they play each other in their pools to get seeded to go into groups, another 4 groups of 5, I think it is. And we're in the Challenge League 8, and the top 4 from that are playing to fill the other spots in the 4 groups. So we're kind of, you've got to kind of earn the right to play the top league teams. So that's what we're going to try and do. But it gives us more of a chance, really, of getting in and getting a few results, and then hopefully trying to take a couple of scalps off the big boys.
Mate, it sounds really simple. I mean,
mate,
who doesn't love a confusing competition this year? There's a few of them over this side of the world with the Heineken Champions Cup and everything. But what does a day look like then for you, Freddie? Because obviously, you know, you mentioned it there. Some of the boys are working in the companies that are related to each team. Yourself, are you getting into the factories after training as well and doing a bit of a shift?
No, mate, I take the free lunch when I go home, mate. No, these boys, mate, they come. And so basically it depends where. I think here, Toyota Automatic Looms, which is the company that we're the part of the original Toyota company that sort of started it all up. So there's a lot of sort of history here. But I think there's about 8 different factories. So depending on where your factory is, you either train just before, they'll either train just before the afternoon session, or they'll come in first thing in the morning. So at the minute I train from probably 8 till 10, and then I go home, and then I'm back in at 3:45 for a meeting and a rugby session. But it's quite nice here, mate. Like, obviously the sunsets here are beautiful, so you kind of train in that night where the sun goes down. It's a bit cooler, and there's not really much to do here anyway, mate, so an early finish wouldn't be of much use. So mate, it's different, it's good. I just can't wait to start getting into some more competitive games, really. So,
Freddie, one of the things, obviously, Jim and myself spend a reasonable amount of time talking about, and it goes hand in hand with one of our sponsors this year. We talk about bush, and Jim obviously has a big bush. I've never seen a Japanese player without a bush, and I've played with a couple in my time. I need to know what are the changing rooms like over there, because you're a man that likes to manscape yourself, lean into that perfect sponsor of ours, Manscaped. Tell me about some Japanese bush, because I bet there's some horror shows. All I'm thinking is Mr. Chow off The Hangover. I know he's Chinese, he's not even Japanese, but it's the same thing, right?
Mate, I'm going to be honest, right? Over here, there's a communal onsen it's called, which is a communal bath, right?
Yeah.
At training. So the boys were like, a couple of the foreign lads had already trained, and they're like, mate, like after training sit, there's a big bath, we can all just get in, chill and all that. I was like, sweet. So I've rocked up and I worked out day one, the Japanese love 3 things, mate. A wide grip chin up, right?
Yes.
Run until they can't run no more, and a blooming hell of a bush, mate. Like, I honestly, mate, they could have King Kong down there, mate. You wouldn't know. There's so much bush. Like, it is like, and I've even like, I come in and I'll leave a little bit of foliage, not a lot, but like, and I got one of the guys to actually trim it a little bit. He had some clippers, they're doing haircuts, and I was like, mate, take a bit off, mate. Your missus will thank you. And he did it, and honestly, he just didn't look the same. But like these boys, mate, it's mind blowing, mate. I've seen nothing like it.
Really?
So I think I need a team supply of the trimmers, mate, from Manscaped out here to try and westernize the Japanese way, mate, because God, it's terrible, mate.
All you need to do, Freddie, is go to manscaped.com and you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code RugbyPod. There you go, mate.
I'll tell the boys, mate. I'll get them on it. Secret Santa.
And it's waterproof as well, so you can take it along to the Onsen, is it?
The Onsen.
Yeah.
Hey, you could do a bulk deal for them.
Mate, I'm going to get secret. I'm not sure if they even do Secret Santa over here, because I don't think they even celebrate Christmas. We've got a pre-season friendly on Boxing Day, but if there is anything, I'm going to buy everyone a Manscaped, mate, and make sure the boys are all trim, ready for the start of the season.
20% off at manscaped.com. Goody, how's your week been, mate?
Well, it's lockdown, isn't it? So, it's fairly quiet, to be honest.
Just at home with the kids.
Talk about Manscaped. Yeah, talk about Manscaped. I said last week that pre-lockdown, the missus went and had her eyelashes done and her nails done, and I went and had a sunbed. And we took it to a new level this week. So she said, look, the back's got a bit hairy again. Can I wax it again? I was like, no, what's the point? We're at home, we're in lockdown. There's no need to wax my back. So middle of the night, I was obviously snoring too loud. She complains every night that I snore like a pig. So she goes to one of the other spare rooms eventually. And middle of the night, I'm lying face first into the pillow. And she wakes me up by ripping 2 wax strips off my back. So I'm raging with her, absolutely raging with her. Imagine that, in the middle of the night, you're fast asleep, and all she's done is put on one of those wax strips on your back and just hoiked it off. She looked at me and she said, that will fucking stop you snoring, won't it, son? And I was like, raging. So I kicked her out of bed. I didn't kick her out of bed. I went in a sulk into the spare room. But yeah, not a lot really. The kids are behaving themselves. I'm looking forward to the lockdown finishing so the chef can come back and cook me some proper food, because, it's just not the same, is it? But apart from that, life's all right. Watched a bit of the Ruggers. Watched a very good game, actually, on Saturday morning, Andy Rowe.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did, actually. I took great pleasure in watching the All Blacks have their pants pulled down. Again, 2 weeks on the trot.
In all seriousness, how good were Argentina, though?
Oh, mate, are you feeling okay? Are you okay, Andy Rowe?
That's why I'm growing the Pedlo. I'm growing the Pedlo moustache.
Yeah.
Big fan of him now.
Yeah, New Zealand. How shit are you?
Unbelievable. I don't know. Just don't know. It's sad to see, but it's also great to see Argentina doing so well. I reckon they would have put 40 on England over the weekend.
Mate, you're being silly now. You're being absolutely ridiculous. But Freddie, I mean, you played against the All Blacks. It's the ultimate team. You beat the All Blacks single-handedly, I believe, back in the day. Not many people have beaten the All Blacks, right? Not many England players have beaten the All Blacks. Argentina have never done it. What about the scenes after the game? You've seen tears, Matera during the game when he's literally a minute in, he's had a pop at the ref saying, no respect, no respect, that is not respect. Straight away, New Zealand had no chance. It was unbelievable to watch, wasn't it?
Mate, it's so good, Nick. Like, I think it's not an unravelling of New Zealand by any stretch, because they'll probably bounce back and score 50 points this weekend. But it's like there's something that they're kind of losing a bit of their aura, I think. They're no longer that team that you can't beat. They've suddenly become like a pretty beatable team. And, you love those games when a team just front up and it was spicy and they were physical And that's the kind of rugby that you sort of missed. And I think that small pocket of Argentinian crowd as well were sort of driving them along. And to see celebrations afterwards with the crowd in the background and stuff like that was class. So, mate, fair play to Argentina. They've been developing for a while, and it was about time they got a massive scalp like that.
Freddie, you would have been pretty happy with what happened on Friday night, mate. Seeing Billy run out there and score his first points for Ireland.
Oh, mate, it was a very proud moment. I think first and foremost, you never want to see someone like Johnny Sexton go off with the injury that he did. Hopefully it's not too serious, but obviously to see the little brother get on and represent Ireland was unbelievable. So a big day, mate. It was an early start for me. I was up at 3:30 or something to watch the game, 4 o'clock. But yeah, it was worth it. So hopefully his head's not too bad. He can have another crack this weekend. But I guess we'll wait and see.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Obviously, Johnny Sexton goes off. Billy comes on. He's playing pretty well. Slots a few kicks, and then he ends up getting a concussion. Was it a full concussion? Was it just a bang on the head? Have you spoke to him? How is he? Does he know who you are?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, mate. I called him up and he said, "Who's this?" And I think that's just because he's now cat, mate, and he's giving me shit rather than his head. No, mate, I spoke to him. He was all right. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know the extent of it or whether he had to go through. I think he passed his HIA, but that'd be a bit of speculation from me. I don't really know, but mate, I just think it's just hugely proud, mate. Like we've spoken about it when he's had good performances for Ulster, and when Gloucester signed Cipriani, there was a real tipping point in his career, and he could have been a frustrated second choice fly half at Gloucester, and right now be struggling to find a club that would start him. But instead, he chose to go over to Ulster, and he's grown. He's just grown and grown in the years that he's been there, and he's finally got his reward. And also, I think it's he was close in the Six Nations before the coronavirus happened, and he came back and he wasn't too happy with how he played in the semi-final and final of the Pro 14, and I think he was kind of worried that his opportunity might have gone. But he went well against Cardiff, and Andy Farrell, to be fair, has backed him, and I thought he got his rewards on what was it? Saturday morning my time, Friday night your time, and I just couldn't be prouder, mate. See him get on and kick his goals and beat a pretty poor Welsh team, but still they needed beating, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. It's interesting actually because Jim speaks on here a lot, and obviously Jim's not with us this week, but he's always bagging Johnny Sexton, saying he's past it. Where do Ireland go next? Obviously Ross Byrne was involved. Billy's now come on the bench and come on and done pretty well. Are you in Jim's bandwagon that Johnny Sexton's got to go, Matt? It's Billy's time now. It's Billy's time to dominate that jersey.
I don't think it is. I think it's hard because you could argue that no one's been given the opportunity to stake their claim, but then you also turn around and say that Johnny Sexton's been one of the best 10s in world rugby for the large part of a decade. So it's like it's the trouble that you have if you have someone, a real stalwart like Johnny Sexton at 10 is replacing him. But like I say, you can argue that no one's really stepped up and taken it, and now is Bill's opportunity, and hopefully he can sort of force his way in there and cause questions for the coaches. But if he's not fit this weekend, obviously we don't know the extent of his injury. Hopefully it's nothing too serious, but I feel like it's about time. And obviously I'm going to say this because my little brother's potentially the one who's going to fill the boots. But even if it was a Ross Byrne or a Jack Carty, someone with less experience than Sexton, they need to start putting 10s into the firing line of big internationals like England. And regardless of what happens on Saturday, if Bill plays and it ends up being a bit of England end up winning the game comfortably, or Ireland don't play that well, that exposure to top flight international rugby means that when the day comes when Johnny Sexton does step away from international rugby, they've actually got someone who's been exposed to that and can learn from that experience and push on, which you can argue they haven't done at all while Johnny Sexton's been at 10. And the reason for that is because he's a world-class player at the end of the day. Yeah,
it'd be great to see Billy play this weekend, but mate, how bad were Wales? What's going on there? We spoke about it last week, and Jim, to be fair to him, I've spoken to him a fair bit over the weekend. He bagged Alan Wynne-Jones last week, didn't he? Went at Alan Wynne-Jones, and their line-out was abysmal. So maybe Jim knows what he's on about. Let's give him a bit of respect here.
Freddie, when you talked about your brother having a few things to learn at international level, What are those things?
No, I think it's just that exposure, mate. Like it's, you know, there's no, there's very small room for error. You know, the physicality, the speed of the game is ramped up from what your club game is, and also just being able to handle the big stage. Like, you know, I have no doubt that my little brother can handle that, and I know him personally, and it's knowing that on that big stage as a fly half, you have to keep stepping up regardless of what happens, and you need to expose people to that. I don't know how Goody feels, but I always felt that, you know, I only got 5 international caps, but in a weird way, they were almost the easiest games to play in, because obviously the physicality was different and the speed was different, but everything happens so quick and everyone knows their jobs that you don't really get a chance to think. You know, before you've even thought about it, it's probably happened. But then on the flip side of that is if you make a couple of mistakes, you have to park it up quick and understand the pressures of representing your country, which, you know, comes with exposure and game time. And without waffling on too much, I remember, if you go back to James O'Connor, I remember his first few caps for Australia. All due respect, he was pretty average.
Woeful.
Like, he was pretty average, but they kept picking him and they put him in. And by the time he got to 10, 15, 20 caps, for a while, he was one of the best in the world, and he was unbelievable because it's then not a big daunting thing to him. It's something that he's used to, he's acclimatized to, and he could just push on. And I think that's where Ireland need to go with their fly halves and their players in general. When you lose, you know, the likes of, you know, Rob Kearney, you lose Johnny Sexton, you lose Rory Best, and these kind of guys. You need to have these guys exposed to top flight international rugby.
I think that's dead right as well when you look at it. And you mentioned about playing international rugby then, Fred. Obviously, when I played it, it was basically because Johnny Wilkinson and about 10 other fly-offs were injured when I got my shout. But it was very similar under Johnny, wasn't it? Johnny was head and shoulders above anyone else. And when he didn't play, because of injuries, England were poor. And that was basically when I played. But you talk about succession planning, and you want to pick your best players, of course you do. But it seems that way with Ireland. Johnny Sexton's so dominant, at some point it has to come to an end. Everyone's career does come to an end. Billy's in a prime position now. How old is Billy now? What is he, 20, 26, 27? Yeah. So, you know, he could have a good 6, 7, 8 years at international rugby potentially. Johnny Sexton's still going to be around for a couple of years, no doubt. But the more they blood him now and give Billy potentially this start at the weekend against England, he'll know a lot of the English guys as well. It becomes more habitual for him, and he gets used to that pressure that you know, that you have much less time on the ball. And I've said it on this podcast before. You watch Carter in his pomp playing for the All Blacks. He looks like he's got so much time on the ball. When I played international rugby, it was just panic station. So I was like, fucking kick it. What do I do? And you know what it's like, don't you, Fred? It's so hard, isn't it? Because it's so much quicker. And you fill in someone's boots that has been an absolute legend for the country. So, yeah, I'd love to see Billy start this weekend. I don't think, you know, Sexton's not played that well, let's be honest, against England over the last few times he's played, whether it's an English club team or it's, you know, the England national team at Twickenham last year. And you think about it, Ireland get bullied by England and have done for the last 3 or 4 times they play them. Ever since England went over to Dublin in the Six Nations, I think it was a couple of years ago, when we spanked them at home. I think then, since we played them in warm-up games and Six Nations last year, we just bully them at the advantage line and outmuscle them. And I think it'll be more of the same again this weekend. But one of the things I need to talk about is Jim got his knives out last week for Alan Wynne-Jones. Freddie, you've watched a lot of international rugby. You've played it. How bad are Wales? What's gone on there? Because you talk about players coming long in the tooth. Jim went after Alan Wynne-Jones last week. He wants him out of the team. He wants him off the British Lions playing as well. What's happening? Because they were poor, weren't they? Wales just have no confidence.
Yeah, to be honest with Wales, I don't really know what's going on. I feel like Gatland was a huge shield for them, and I feel like he was obviously he's been an integral part of Welsh rugby for so long, and you kind of get that change, and you know, Pivac's probably trying to implement maybe a different style, and maybe players aren't quite on board with it yet. It's very hard to say, but I agree with Goody in the fact that they just looked shot on confidence and sort of lacked a lot of ideas. Like, you know, you kind of don't expect that from Wales. You know that they're a team that, they like to implement their kicking game. They like to be physical and sort of strangle teams to death. But just the lack of imagination and the lack of attacking ability was poor. And as much as it was, quite tight up until, the try at the end to a certain point, like they were never really in it. You never really saw them sort of challenging Ireland. Ireland always looked in control. So it's hard to say, but it's got to be something to do with the changes, I reckon. And, people are calling for Pivac's head. You've got to just give them time to just settle in. It's a big change after you've had someone for so long. So, it's hard to say, but they got Georgia this weekend, so hopefully they can put in a performance in and get a little bit of confidence back.
People forget that, and Freddie, you'll have seen this when you've watched them. When Wales played under Gats, it wasn't pretty rugby at all. It wasn't exhilarating rugby. It was Warren ball, big, physical, abrasive. They were hard to beat because their defence was so strong under Sean Edwards. Their fitness and their physicality were the two kind of pillars that they built their game on. And I just look at it now, they've tried to change how they're playing a little bit and the amount of ball handling errors they're making. They didn't actually pass that much under Warren. But under Pivac, they're obviously trying to expand their game a bit. And it's just taken a huge amount of time. And under that becomes a massive load of pressure from the Welsh public, because you're hearing people calling for Pivac's head now, aren't they? And I mentioned it last week, go and get Scotty Robertson if you've got to make the change. You get him 2 years before a World Cup, because Pivac's contract finishes. I think it finishes at the end of the Six Nations, doesn't it? Mate, it's really tough, and it's really sad to see. They tried to be physical early on. You saw Liam Williams getting stuck into James Lowe. How did that work out for you, Liam? Not so great, because James Lowe ended up having an absolute worldie of a game and scored at the death as well when you missed the tackle. But I don't know, there's just something missing, and a lot of it is to do with the changes they've made at the helm. Obviously, defensive structures, that it just looked comfortable for Ireland, didn't it?
It's quite funny how, I know it's easy being an armchair critic and stuff like that, but, we almost contradicted ourselves, because it goes back to that Johnny Sexton debate. So you suddenly start wanting to change things and blood a new player in, or change the way the team's playing, and you don't initially get the results that people expect. What do you do then? It's the coach's head. It's very hard for a coach to turn around and say, like, is it time for, Dan Biggar's a world-class player, and I'm not saying this is my opinion, but is it time to start someone like Sheedy, who's shown a little bit of attacking X factor in the Premiership? Like, is this Autumn Nations Cup a time for coaches to experiment, try new things, blood new players? Or is it you're dining at the top table and it's win at all costs? It's like, we could be very contradictory and say, it's time for Sexton to move to one side and blood the next 10.
That's personal, man. Let's get billion.
Yeah, exactly. But you do that and Ireland don't get the results. Suddenly we're sat here in 3 weeks' time going, I'll tell you what, Andy Farrell's got to go because Ireland aren't getting the results. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it is very, it's a very tight line to walk across. But, Wales have got to make a decision. The top dogs in Welsh rugby have got to make a decision. If Pivac's their man, they've got to back him and give him time. If he's not, they've got to get him out and get, like you say, Robertson in or something like that and go on a different route. But
so you heard it. You heard it. You heard it here first. Then Freddie wants. You heard it here first. Freddie wants Faz out unless he picks Billy. That's all I took from that.
Hey, no, Faz. I like Faz a lot. I've got a lot of time for him. I'm wearing my Green of Ireland today. Mate,
do you guys actually see a different style of play from Wales though?
They can't catch.
So is there a new style not matched up to their skill set?
Yeah, I think so. And listen, don't get me wrong, these boys are talented. So Liam Williams is a quality player. You've got Davis in the centres. Let's not forget, a couple of years ago, he was the Lions player of the tour when we beat New Zealand in New Zealand, didn't we, Andy Rowe? Or we should have done. These are world-class operators. Dan Biggar's got a ridiculous skill set. But you're changing a mentality of a team of the way you played, that it used to just go and crash, bash, Warren ball, big old 12, hit it up, big ball carries. And they didn't play attractive rugby under Gats. Let's not beat around Jim's bush here, because, we're not talking about the Welsh teams of old that chucked it around everywhere, that, Jonathan, what's his name? the old 70s, 80s era. We're talking about a successful period under Gats that were built on foundations of just tough ruggers, like not overly expansive. You're not looking at Halfpenny thinking he's going to rip the world up from fullback these days, are you? But they are still quality players, and there's a different voice at the helm. There's a different mindset around actually trying to put a bit more width on it, and they haven't got the skills at that level. And as Freddie spoke about, the international level, if you're not ain't used to doing it at that speed, that intensity, with that much less time on the ball, then you're going to make errors. And that's what Ireland did to them. Ireland hounded them, didn't they? Defensively they looked good. And Wales just made error after error. And I don't think the ref, Matthew Reynal, it's not Wales' fault that he was the ref, but he was shocking. What's he do? Even when you got David Flatman calling you out for scrum penalties because he doesn't even know what he's doing, there's definitely something wrong.
Yeah, I think as well, the Welsh thing, you've got to remember is the whole structure of the week will be different. The messaging from the coaches will be different. There's a lot of changes going on, and sometimes it just takes a while for people. I'm not saying there's a players' revolt and players aren't on board, but it does take a while when you've been used to Gatland for so long. There's going to be a change and a different dynamic and energy around the place and how things are done. And sometimes that just takes a little bit of time to settle in and sort of combine to get the product that you want.
Well, let's not forget with Pivac, right? He's taken over from Gatland after they've just lost a semi-final of the World Cup to South Africa, who end up winning it. Only just lost that. The Six Nations prior to that, they were Grand Slam champions. So you're taking over as a head coach at the worst possible time. And you chuck in coronavirus when boys aren't used to playing. You haven't got as much time with the team. You've had months off away from the game. And you are literally, you're not a dead man walking, but you're under a huge amount of pressure. Conversely, look at Eddie Jones with England when he took over. England, we were at our lowest possible ebb. Didn't make the knockout stages of our own World Cup. Eddie Jones comes in, changes a few things, start winning the games, and it's a massive mind change and shift in performances and feel-good factor. So you've got one head coach who, has gone in at the toughest possible time because they're nearly at the top of the world in terms of what they've achieved. And then you compare that to Eddie Jones, where England were, at the very bottom of how bad we could be. And you get, you fix a few things and off you go on a winning run. So I feel for Pivac, but like Freddie says, you've either got to make a decision now, bin him off post Autumn Nations Cup, or back him and say, listen, no matter what the results are, you're in for 2 more years.
Well, we'll chat about the other Autumn Nations Cups games now, but first, if you haven't seen the launch of the new British and Irish Lions shirt yet and haven't already grabbed yourself one, then head over to Lovell Rugby and use the code RugbyPod15 to get 15% discount off the whole British and Irish Lions range. That's lovellrugby.co.uk, and that's the code RugbyPod15 for 15% off. Go and check them out now. England, Georgia, Goody. You were picking them by 50 odd points, weren't you, mate? What happened?
It rained, didn't it? Let's just talk about the rain. Listen, it was a pretty dour game. Let's not beat around the bush with it. It came down to a bit of a scrum fest. There was going to be loads of errors because of the weather. Georgians, did they test us? A little bit. England, and Freddie will know a bit more about this than me because he's more in touch with the game and still playing the game. Our attack, and I said it last week, didn't I? You want to see some fluent attack, and it was difficult because of the weather. Elliot Daly's try was a nice play out the back, and we finish off around the edge. You get a Georgian defender to bite in, but in reality, it just became a battle of brawn, didn't it? And scrum after scrum. What did they say? 19 scrums or something. And I was just waiting for it all to kick off again, a la Oxford, the training session a few years ago. But listen, England, it's job done. It wasn't pretty. When the weather's like that, is it a banana skinning and we're never going to lose? But you're looking for a performance, and the weather put paid to actually our ability to go through decent phases and put some decent structure on the game. But it's still a question mark, isn't it, around England? Our attack has been a bit flat in the last couple of games. We play Ireland this week. I don't think we'll change too much from what we've done previously. Against Ireland, we'll be physical. We'll kick a lot. And I think that's what Eddie Jones has been doing, preparing for the bigger games. You ain't going to just chuck it around in the rain willy-nilly, are you, against a Georgian team? And that was the one thing that people wanted to see, but the weather put paid to that.
Did you guys hear about Eddie Jones's latest soundbite where he was saying how the last 2 games against Italy and Georgia haven't helped prepare them for the game against Ireland, and it's like going from playing Kia Nishikori to Novak Djokovic?
Mate, Eddie Jones. He said last week he was going to pick 9 forwards to start the game. Nothing happened. He's now talking about Nishikori and Novak Djokovic. He just talks in riddles, like hybrid players. There's no hybrid players, Eddie. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it against Georgia. You ain't doing it against Ireland this week. And, you know, they kicked a lot of ball away in those 2 games, so maybe he's only got himself to blame. But I don't think England will change how they play at all against Ireland. So it's just Eddie Jones and his soundbites again, isn't it?
Oh, mate, my pet hate is people who just compare to like other sports, but sports that have no relevance to rugby. So like you'll get a sports psychologist come in once, and I won't name this person, but they were like, so Steve Redgrave, every day he woke up, no matter what the weather was, he said, this is our perfect conditions. And I'm like, yeah, but getting in a rowing boat when if someone could knock him out of the rowing boat, right, while he's rowing along, you got a point. But why don't you just fucking don't compare rugby to rowing or sprinting or anything? If it was a blooming, like you could just run across lanes and whack people and trip each other up, I get it. So don't compare rugby to tennis or players to tennis or rowing or these individual non-contact sports. It just doesn't work. Sorry, that's my rant. Thank you.
Good rant, Freddie. I like it.
Yeah,
So you don't like Eddie Jones either?
Well, he's never picked me for England, so I guess not.
Italy, Scotland, big win for Jim. He would have been giving us loads of detail on how Scotland got their win over Italy, but he's not here. So what do you guys make of that game?
Yeah, it wasn't a great game, let's be honest. A lot of these games haven't been great, have they? Because there's no atmosphere. But fair play to Italy. They rocked up. They were physical, abrasive with Scotland. I was desperately hoping, what were they, 11-7 up at half-time? I stuck it out on Twitter. Jim would be nervous. How good would it have been if Italy had beaten Scotland? And it boiled down to, from what I'm regurgitating this, but I think it boiled down to a bit of a dodgy penalty call that led to a Scotland try, which took them out of the game. But yeah, I mean, Italy are improving. Just gutted they couldn't get one over Scotland.
Yeah, I got to admit, I chose tempura prawns and a ramen over that, mate. Mate, like I say, I think the best.
Yeah, it would have been nice to Italy win.
Yeah, mate, I was gutted for Italy, but at the same time, Duncan Wears deserves a result, doesn't it? So
it's unfortunate to see France-Fiji game called off because of COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's obviously to do with the positive COVID tests. From what we gather inside the Fiji camp, and all I'm going to say is, I can only blame a couple of people really. Well, 13 of them. The Barbars 13. Chris Robshaw going out on the piss and then taking it back into the Barbar squad. Maybe that's where some of the Fijians picked it up from because.
Oh, goody.
Oh, well, you know, obviously that's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but you did see, you know, the Fijian boys, they're flown from all over the world. Simon Raului, who's one of the top dogs at Fiji in terms of the management side, he said it, how things like that can affect and have a knock-on effect for the Fijians if some of them have picked it up. And it's a massive shame because, do you know what, the French team are a decent outfit and they're improving massively. But the Fijian boys have always thrown down a hell of a challenge to the French team. And you've got some of those boys playing in France. You looked at the backline that Fiji picked. My God, would you like to see that? I mean, Freddie, can you imagine playing with some of those boys? You've got Nadolo on one wing, Tuisova on the other wing, Murray Valu's in there, Bottia. I mean, just ridiculous. And they would have caused some damage in that game. So it's a massive shame, especially with the way the competition's set up. I know the French team, for all our millions of listeners, the French team further down the line, they're not going to be able to play all their international players as well because of the big fallout between the FFR and the LNR, which is the Ligue Nationale Rugby over there. So, yeah, I mean, it's a massive shame. And all I can do is blame Chris Robshaw and the Barbarians 13.
Well, it's probably time to get your predictions for the Guinness Match Pint Predictor this weekend. Then you can do Jim's for him, Freddie, and he's been doing pretty well recently, so no pressure. And with pints temporarily off the table as the pubs are shut, Match Pint and Guinness have teamed up to offer the overall winner of each round an ultimate Guinness game day bundle, which includes cans for the game, Guinness glassware, a rugby ball to chuck around, Deliveroo vouchers, and some other awesome snacks, as well as heaps of Guinness stash. So you can still predict and still win Guinness game day setups. We've got hold of some as well for our league. So the overall winner at the end of round 3 will be sent a bundle for the final round of games. 4,500 Rugby Pod listeners have joined our private league already. So just download the Matchpint app from all good app stores and predict the winner and margin of each game. Give it a go and make sure you join our league by using the code RugbyPod as well. And you and Jim are neck and neck on 39 points after the first weekend, Goody.
Yeah, I actually backed Scotland to win by 12 and it was only 11, so that was a good result for me. England, I went by 15, it was only 40. And Ireland, I didn't expect Ireland to spank Wales by that much, but they did. So unfortunately, Jim and I are on the same points at the minute, and he can't be here to gloat, which is always nice.
Right, we'll go through them. Italy v Fiji. Who you guys got?
Tough one, this.
Where are you going, Goody?
I don't know. It's a tough one because Italy were improved. You've got to back Fiji. I just love the Fijian boys. I'm going to go Fiji by 8.
See, I think if it was me, I'd back Fiji, but I'm going to put my gym hat on, and I'm going to go Italy by 10.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I like that.
Bold,
England, Ireland?
England, Ireland. England, mate. England all day long. England by 12 as well.
Ooh.
Confident, mate. Confident. Ireland haven't got a patch on us over the last few times we played them. Unless Billy Burns in the 10 shirt, then it's a different story. Come on, Billy.
I was going to say, technically, this is a conflict of interest for me. I come out of this. Either way, I'm going to get some abuse on social media. So let's say Ireland by 3.
And Billy kicks the winner.
Yeah, Billy Burns drop goal to win it.
There we go.
Wales, Georgia.
Please don't listen to this now, Bill, because if he misses it.
Wales v Georgia.
Mate, Wales on a horrible run. But if Pivac loses to Georgia, he's gone on Sunday. That's what I'm saying. He is gone on Sunday, so he's got to be Wales by 25 for me.
I'm going to go. I was going to go Wales by 20. I actually think it's going to be. I think it's going to be nervous for Wales. I wouldn't surprise me with the first 20 minutes, half an hour. It's going to be a tight game. So I'm going to go Wales to pull out in the end. But it'll be a tough old contest, I reckon.
Scotland v France.
Jim, Freddie, Jim.
I'm going to go France. I'm going to go France by. I'm actually going to go 25. I'm going to go.
Really? Oh. France by 25. Has Jim got to stick to this?
Mate.
Yeah, hopefully Jim's got to stick to this, right? He'll be absolutely
100%,
raging. He'll be absolutely raging with that.
If this was me, that's what I'd say. So lucky Jim, mate, but Scotland are getting pumped, boy.
Hey, perfect. I'm going to go France by. There's a lot of anger to come out of the French after losing to Scotland in the Six Nations at Murrayfield. So I'm going to go France by 12.
All right, there you go. We'll get on to a very special Jim will solve it, or Freddie will solve it in just a minute. But first, Budgie Smuggler are on board with us again this week. So keep your weirder than weird fish stories coming in on social media to be in with a chance to win a pair of limited edition Rugby Pod Budgie Smugglers. What's the weirdest thing you guys have seen, or what's the weirdest thing you've seen so far in Japan, Freddie?
No, I'll tell you now. I went to a shopping mall last week and there was a cat on a lead.
Hey?
There was a cat on a lead, like a dog.
No.
A woman was walking a cat on a lead, and it was in a jumper. I've seen, honestly.
Who does that?
Don't forget, Budgie Smuggler have designed our very own limited edition Rugby Pod face masks, so you can get your hands on them and loads of other great gear for winter. So obviously, Budgie Smugglers, for those, just go to budgiesmuggleruk.com. A donation will be made to Matt Hampson Foundation for every one of the Rugby Pod masks that gets sold as well. So big thanks to Budgie Smuggler for all their support. And go and check them out at budgiesmuggleruk.com. Righto then, it's time for that very special Jim Will Solve It with Freddie Will Solve It. You ready for this one, Freddie?
Not at all, mate. Not at all. I'm a very left field thinker, which doesn't help.
And someone special sent it in this week, haven't they, Gertie?
Yeah, they have. It's going viral around the world, and the boys in the Premiership, specifically one of my old clubs, I didn't quite play for them, but London Irish. Lovejoy Chawatama has got in touch with us, and he sent me a message on Instagram, and he wants to hear this riddle for Jim specifically, but unfortunately, Lovejoy, Jim ain't here this week, but Freddie is. So over to you, Big Fred.
Riddle me this, riddle me that. Fred will solve it. Pivac!
Mate, Jim will be proud of that. Jim will be very
Thanks,
proud.
mate. Cheers.
Very nice, Freddie. Righto, here we go. You enter a room, 2 dogs, 4 horses, 1 giraffe, and a duck are lying on the bed. 3 chickens are flying over a chair. How many legs are on the ground?
I don't know whether this. I'm trying to think. There's a very obvious answer. That's looking me in the face. How many chairs are there?
There is. So you enter a room, Freddie. There's 2 dogs,
Yeah.
4 horses, 1 giraffe, and a duck are lying on the bed.
Yeah.
3 chickens are flying over the chair.
Yeah.
How many legs are on the ground?
8.
How'd you get 8?
Oh, hang on. There's no, because a bed doesn't have. Does a bed have legs?
I think it does, Freddie.
Yeah. So there's 4 bed legs
Yeah.
and 4 chair legs,
Yeah.
and 4 plus 4 is 8.
Yeah.
The chickens are flying. Oh, hang on, 10, because I walked in the room.
Hey!
Yes!
You nailed it.
Oh, sick. I nailed
There
it.
you go. He nailed it. Jim would have been there for about half an hour trying to work that one out. So, mate, Freddie solved it.
Mate, I will bloom in. I'm taking that, boys. I'm very happy.
Well done, Freddie.
Well, normally you'd be here for 10 minutes listening to Jim absolutely butcher that. But obviously, as his replacement today, I've absolutely put him to shame. So, Jimbo, this is for you, mate. Riddle me this, riddle me that. Fred fucking solved it. I like Jim.
Nice, Freddie.
Hey.
Nice. Jim will be absolutely devastated with that.
Done.
And the Premiership's back again this
I'll
week.
take it.
Do you guys want to have a brief look at that? Must be weird for you, Freddie, not being in it after being in the start of every Premiership game for the last 40 years.
It's no, not that old, but no, it is weird. But then it's a fresh challenge from out here. But I think it's going to be interesting, mate. It's been a short pre-season for the boys. Some teams obviously just sort of threw the towel in at the end of last year and didn't really compete. So it'll be interesting to see how those teams step up. So I'll keep my eye on it from out here. But it's hard to really get a gauge because I felt the integrity of the season last year was massively jeopardised by the fact that teams decided to field, lesser teams, and because of the scheduling, there's a lot of rotation. So it's really going to be an unknown start to the season. Obviously, Exeter are going to be up there challenging like they always are, but anyone else, you just don't know what's going to happen. So it should be an entertaining one.
Yeah, especially with all these internationals and how much, I don't think people realise how little the international players can play in the Premiership until, way past December, I think. Not only have they got these games now, they have some rest weeks, but then they've got the Six Nations kicking in. The good thing, though, at the minute, as it stands, and we'll see as things develop, because obviously if a team or a club has games cancelled because of coronavirus, there's no midweek games. So you'd hope that we're going to see, as Freddie mentioned then about the integrity of the competition, there was an under-13s team put out 1 week against the first team. So it'll be hard to kind of garner who's going to be the top team. Listen, Exeter will be quality. I don't think Wasps lose too many to international rugby. I know obviously they've lost Dan Robson, Minozzi, Launchbury and Jack Willis. Some of those boys may go back over time. But Bath were looking good until the back end. Obviously they got spanked in the semi-final. Sale have a massive point to prove after they felt they should have been in the playoffs had they not had that last game cancelled. And Simon Orange, friend of the show, has made a couple of comments on Twitter which I quite enjoyed this week. So they'll be chomping at the bit as well. Newcastle lost to Ealing 2 weeks ago, beat them this weekend. See how they come up. It's going to be tough to see, but again, Exeter will be the team for everyone to beat.
There's been a few rumours flying around over the past week or so about players leaving the Premiership, isn't there?
There has, and Freddie might have some intel on this for us. Zach Mercer, is he off to France, Fred?
I'll be honest with you, if you give me 5 minutes, I'll give him a call and see if I can find out. Mate, to be honest with you, I'll be honest, it's the first I've heard of it. I know, for me, Zach Mercer's a player that should be in that England squad. And I've been that kind of player at Bath as well, where he was fit at the end of last year and just not selected. And as a player who can play anywhere in the back row and play those positions very well, I'd be extremely frustrated. He won't want to sit and watch his career passing by sitting on the bench or not being involved at Bath. So it wouldn't surprise me if he looked elsewhere. That's just my opinion. But he's a world-class player who needs to be playing week in, week out, not holding a bag for the Bath first team in the week.
Interesting, isn't it? Because he was obviously in the mix. He got capped. He came on a live show with us down in London. He's a top bloke, isn't he? Proper northern, salt of the earth guy. I think he had a massive knee injury, didn't he? That kind of took him out of contention for a while. Now you're seeing the back row options with Curry, Underhill. Obviously, Jack Willis has come through off the back of his injury a couple of years ago. We've got Ben Earl come through, crazy good as well. Billy's there. There's just a plethora of back row options. So, it's like anything. As a player that's come into a contract negotiation, and, you mentioned it on air, look at Billy, look at your brother, how, he probably went from having the worst day of his life when he found out that Gloucester had signed Cipriani, because that ultimately they'd probably expect him to be first choice, to then Saturday was probably one of the best days of his life, playing for Ireland off the back of moving, because they'd signed Cipriani to Ireland, playing for Ulster, and it's a brilliant story. So with every decision that a player makes when they're coming out of contract, and they've got other options, you just have to be really, I suppose, selfish and just make the best decision for you and your family. And I suppose club feelings come into it, and people talk about loyalty, but there ain't any loyalty anymore, is there? In terms of clubs to players. So each player has to make what is the best decision for him at that time. And if Zach Mercer's not getting as much love at Bath as perhaps he should or he was used to, and he might be getting offered twice as much in terms of euros from Montpellier, which we know they've got a boatload of cash, and Montpellier aren't going that well this season so far. Philippe Saint-André knows the English game. Philippe Saint-André has openly gone out in the press and gone, I'm looking at a player like Zach Mercer. 750,000 euros, yes please, I'll sign that contract, wouldn't he? So, that's as brutal as it is these days.
You've got to take into account as well the whole pay cut situation. Like, I know no one wants to be pay cut. I know there's people that have lost jobs and are in a lot worse position than rugby players. However, it's a short career. Boys need to take out of it what they can. And if you're being asked or you're being offered to double your pay and to be looked after maybe a little bit better, then you're going to seriously consider it. I had plenty of phone calls from players asking me how I got this deal in Japan, because financially they wanted that stability over the honour of playing Premiership rugby, which the minute someone deems you're not good enough, you just chucked out the door. So, you can't blame players for that. There's definitely no loyalty now in rugby, and players will make moves, for their enjoyment, but also for their financial stability going forward.
Do you think Bath are mismanaging him a little bit?
I'm going to say, yeah. I've been heavily critical of how I felt I was treated at Bath, and I've left there now, and I don't want to keep going after him. It's not a case of like naming and shaming or being bitter. Obviously, I wish things went a bit different, but I've definitely felt that there is a fair amount of mismanagement down there. And I know if Zach was being, obviously I don't know this, but if Zach was being treated near the way that I felt I was being treated, then it wouldn't be a place where I'd want to stay if it was me again, if that makes sense. So, I don't want to shut Bath down. They're a great club. They bounced back unbelievably well last year. But yeah, I think management now in the game of rugby is kind of gone, mate. Like, it's you're as valued as until they decide you're not, and then you're left scraping the barrel. So if someone wants to offer you obscene amounts of cash to go in and play somewhere else, then you've got to consider it.
Marcus Smith apparently could be heading to France as well. Do you hear that?
Well, I heard that one, but I also heard he's been linked with, we spoke about it just then, Bath as well. Because obviously, you look at mismanagement, obviously what Bath did with Freddie, and I can talk about it as his mate. Ultimately they told Reece Priestland a couple of years ago they didn't have a contract for him, and then, that turned around. So they tried to get Andre Pollard. We spoke about this on the pod before. I mean, it just seems like they're chucking anything at anyone. And Marcus Smith, quality player. Let's not sugarcoat anything. He's played exceptionally well. He's a young kid. He's got an immense talent. In terms of managing a game, he's still got a lot to learn around that. But his actual raw skills, he is pretty good, very good actually. And I think he scored a boatload of points. He kicks his goals. Bath are possibly looking at a Priestland replacement long term, and Marcus Smith certainly fits the bill for a young Englishman that you can get EPS money out of as well if he's in the squad. He's English qualified, so that sort of kind of ticks that box, and he's young enough as well. So it'd be interesting if he goes there. I can't see Marcus Smith going to Lyon at the minute. I really can't. Although the door for him with being involved with England does potentially seem shut. At the moment, behind obviously forward, if he was fit, Farrell's playing at 10 at the minute. Jacob Umunga's in the squad. Joe Simmons isn't in there. Still, I've got no idea. So maybe he will look there. Who knows? But it's nice to see the rugby rumour bandwagon is back, and there's big Euros being dished around because Euros are nice.
Thanks, Goody, and a big thanks to Freddie, and thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe on whatever platform you get your podcasts on. Leave us a review and check us out on YouTube as well.
Pod. Rugby pod.
Freddie, sort the Japanese bush out. Pod.
Mate, I'm on it, mate.